Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my weekly compendium of case reports between the 26th of May to the 1st of June 2021. Case files number 142 to 147. Case file number 142, written by Colette01. Playing ball with her friend resulted in an afternoon she can't comprehend. This happened many years ago. My friend's family and I gathered together to go enjoy a Saturday outing at the park. This park was your typical open field site, and the field is as large as 4 football stadiums. It had no playgrounds, not many trees, so you would be easily able to play catch or football. I was an active and sporty adolescent at this point, and so I decided to play a game of catch football with my friends. My friend and I decided to toss the ball around for a bit until the game began, as the rest of the gang were still settling in. Perhaps 10 minutes into the practice, my friend tossed the ball directly to me with good precision that I moved a foot to my right. But as the ball was coming towards me, I looked up, and right above me, I saw what I can describe to you as a black saucer or stealth. I'm trying to remember as it was many years ago. Mind you, I only saw the bottom of the object as I was looking north, but oddly, the object remained steady, did not move or make any noise. At this age, I knew all about UFOs, but I wanted to make certain I wasn't hallucinating any of it. As I looked back down at my friend, I told him to look up. That's when I noticed he hadn't moved. Him and everyone else were freaking frozen. I yelled to grab the attention of a family member, but no answer. The whole field had dozens of families enjoying their day. Well, were, all frozen in time. No one moved. Birds remained still in the sky. The air seemed dusty and had no scent. Now, I hadn't left my spot for the fact that I was in shock, but was surprised I was able to move my mouth and arms at all. Here's the kicker. As I looked up at the sky once again, the object that was there had now disappeared. No noise, beautiful clear blue sky, but no object. I looked back down at my friend and remained confused. Then, that's when I heard my friend say, "Hey, throw the ball." Everything went back to normal. This all happened in a matter of seconds. I quickly asked my friend if he just saw the same object as I did, stupidly expecting him to say yes. He was confused, but he knew how serious I was in that moment. I never spoke about what happened to me until years later when I mentioned it to my spouse. I don't know what happened, but I wouldn't like to ever encounter it again. Case notes, file number 142. So there was recently another UFO story, not the same type of craft you described, but the slowdown of motion in people near you. That same thing was witnessed. I wonder if this is intentional by these aliens, or were you singled out for some reason? Or if it's just a byproduct of the mind perceiving this craft that we're not yet ready to encounter. It's like in Stargate SG-1, if you ever saw that show. The ancient database downloaded into one of the members' brains, and it causes all sorts of havoc. The information is too much to process, and initially it's okay, but as the information unfolds in O'Neill's mind, it takes over him, and he loses himself. We may just not be sufficiently developed yet. My impression still remains the same, though, that I don't believe these beings intend us any harm. Case file number 143, written by Melanie Elameo, an indifferent face, completely out of place. So this happened about 2 years ago or so, but it still sends chills down my spine whenever I think about it. There's a local factory that was made in 1890 and opened in 1891 as a sewing factory where people handcrafted detachable collars and cuffs. In 1999, it was repurposed as a bunch of little consignment shops throughout the whole building in each room. Today, there's still the original huge elevator shafts with rickety gated doors. Anyways, one night, me and my friend decided to go and check out one of the bookshops that just opened there. We headed downstairs, went and left to the store, and eventually took a break on one of the benches before leaving. To our knowledge, nobody else was in the building, or at least in the basement with us. So we're sitting there, and the way the bench is positioned is flat up against the wall where you can see all the way up the hallway, with the flight of stairs to our right and one of the shops to our left. While we were sitting there talking, I started feeling like this uncomfortable feeling and tried telling my friend I wanted to leave and to hurry up because I just didn't like this feeling. He told me to calm down and that we'd leave in a minute, and the uncomfortable feeling went away. As we were about to get up and go, we saw someone come around the corner and start approaching us. We figured it was a maintenance worker, but that feeling of uncomfortableness came over me again, yet worse this time. Now, the way he turned the corner was completely unnatural. He walked to the end of the hallway, stared at the wall in front of him for a solid 5 seconds, and then turned away towards us and took a brief pause before coming our way. The way he turned the corner, though, it seemed like he just knew we were there and was completely unfazed when he saw us. I would say that's plausible, but we were being fairly quiet and the hallway was a solid 30 or 40 feet long, so we'd have to be talking decently loud for him to hear us. I went into panic mode, but my friend kept her cool. The place was still open. We weren't breaking any rules, just sitting on this bench. My friend calmly looked at him and just said, "Hi, how you doing?" And the man didn't say anything. He just kept walking towards us at a somewhat rapid pace. I remember looking him in the eyes. He had zero expression, not anger, not happiness, not confusion, not nothing. It was severely unsettling. Even after my friend said something to him, he remained completely unfazed. He was just on a mission to get to us. You'd assume if this was a maintenance worker, he'd either tell us it's time to leave, or say hi back, or something, anything. But nope, just this blank, expressionless face making his way towards us. After he didn't respond to my friend and started getting close to us, we just gave each other this "we need to go" look and sprinted out of there. When we got out of the building and down the road, the uncomfortable feeling left me and I started calming down. We didn't really talk about what just happened. We just went on our way and back to my house. Ever since that night, I haven't been back to the factory or any of the shops there. Something about that man wasn't right, and it sent chills down my spine seeing him, and it even sent chills down my spine just typing this out. I'm a firm believer of the paranormal, and I can just about guarantee whatever that was definitely wasn't human. Case notes, file number 143. So others here have suggested it could have been a serial killer, a criminal, someone generally dangerous but of the mundane spectrum. This is very possible. Though given he did nothing to both of you, my gut says it may have been a spirit. There have been many accounts now of spirits forming fully, not transparent. Perhaps he had died a century ago in the old factory, and he was just bitter about how his death transpired, and now he lingers around. Case file number 144, written by Beneficial Noise 420. Driving with their family switched into a puzzling anomaly. The whole family was in the car. All seats were filled. We got to the bagel shop and everyone got out. Keep in mind, it's just me, my parents, and my brother. We wait right next to the car for my brother for what seems like forever. I finally walk over to the car to tell him to get out, but no one was there. I tell my parents and we're like, WTF? We look around the car and around the shop for like 10 minutes, but nothing. The car alarm suddenly goes off and we see my brother stuck inside it with the doors locked. A true glitch in the matrix. Edit. Some more needed details. My brother is 24, and therefore well past the age of hiding from family for giggles. The car isn't big enough to simply hide in either. It's a 4-seater and he was in the front passenger seat. We waited for him to get out of the car for a few moments, then I went over to tell him to hurry up. He wasn't in there. I called over my parents and everyone peered in, astonished that he had practically vanished. My dad locks the doors and we start looking around outside, because maybe he just slipped out and we didn't notice. Then we hear a super loud car alarm and notice it's ours. As we get closer, we see my brother stuck in the car, obviously looking for a way to turn off the alarm. My dad unlocks the car, asked where he was, said he was in there the whole time, and no one spoke about it any further. Me being part of this community, I was just dying to share. Case notes, file number 144. So that no one spoke about it further is wild. If it was me, either as a brother or the family who lost track of him in such an impossible manner, I'd be bringing up the event at every family dinner. Likely, this was another out-of-phase event where people, and it seems inanimate objects too, go out of sync, at least with the electromagnetic field. No one can see them or touch them, but they don't notice anything off usually. Still bound by Earth's gravity, but that's all. Then they reappear, usually a few minutes later. The most memorable story of this, in my mind at least, is the kid sliding down a covered water park slide, not emerging for a whole 10 minutes. Something is going on there, though. Rare, I don't know. We don't have a scientific theory for what it is yet, but it is happening frequently. Case file number 145, written by Cillian Drome, a classic Disney idol turned disturbingly maniacal. When I was a very young child, we would occasionally go visit my grandmother in Indiana. Due to a lack of available beds, I would usually have to sleep on the couch in the living room. The couch was pushed up against the wall that was in the front of the house. There was either a window or the front door with a window in it, next to the couch, through which light from the streetlight outside shone into the house. Directly in front of the door, on the opposite wall of the room, was an open kitchenette. This was a small house, and the kitchen wasn't much larger than a short hallway. It did have an opening in one wall where food could be passed into the dining room. It had no door, but rather a doorway into the living room at night when it was dark. The light from the street would shine in and light up the doorway along with a bit of floor and some counter space. Other than a small bit of light, the rest of the living room was very, very dark. One night, I had to sleep on the couch, which was a bit scary for me because I would be in the room alone. Being a young child at the time, I'd have much preferred to have one of my siblings in there with me, but they were all sleeping in the basement. I was not sleepy and was just lying there with my face to the back cushion of the couch. I rolled over to face the other way, towards the kitchen, hoping that somehow that might make me more comfortable. When I did, I saw something in the kitchen that still sends a chill down my spine to this very day. Standing there in the kitchen, bending over as if looking for controls on the dishwasher, was a figure. Please don't laugh at what I say next, because it's not a joke, and the mood of the event was the exact opposite of what it's supposed to be when a child would normally see this figure. It was Mickey Mouse. Not the cartoon version, but the guy in the costume you'd see walking around at the Magic Kingdom, getting his picture taken with kids. I knew it was a guy in a costume. Even though I was a child, I understood that it was not actually the Mickey Mouse you'd see at the theme park. I knew that no one in my family had such a costume. Whoever this was, he, she, or it, was definitely not supposed to be in my grandmother's kitchen in the middle of the night. And why was it looking at the dishwasher? I shut my eyes and pretended to be asleep. I must have kept them shut for half an hour. The problem with shutting your eyes in a situation like this is the fear that upon opening them, the thing will now be right in front of you, staring right in your face. So I let them open just a bit and looked through my eyelashes. You know, the way you can, so it looks like your eyes are still closed. When I did, I saw Mickey again. Now he had turned around facing the opposite wall where the pass-through was. His hands, those big white puffy oversized gloves, they were on the countertop in front of him. His head was hung low, like he was looking at the floor. A few moments later, as if he realized I was looking at him, he turned his head very slowly until he was looking right at me. I closed my eyes tight and went back to pretending to be asleep again. I spent the entire night in sheer terror and didn't open my eyes again until I heard the breakfast bacon sizzling in the pan the next morning. A few years ago, I told the story to my sister and her eyes watered up. I asked why she started crying, and she said that when we were little, one night she was sleeping in the basement of the same house and saw someone in what she described as an evil rat costume staring at her while she was trying to sleep. Upon hearing the story, my mother added that there was a paranormal event at that house that drove everyone running outside into the backyard one day, but I don't recall what it was. Maybe I'll ask her again and tell the tale soon. Case notes, file number 145. I'd say there are a few possible explanations here. None of them are positive though. The first is, this is some lunatic who enjoys tormenting young children by dressing up in a Mickey Mouse costume and breaking into that specific home, and possibly others, not to hurt them, but to scar them psychologically. Another possibility is it was a spirit which just had the same goal. I lean a bit more towards this purely because of the small detail you included, that this figure knew when you opened your eyes again even after 30 minutes, unless you made a noise to signal that you had opened them again. With either option, I'm glad whatever it was didn't intend you or your sister any physical harm. Do you know if your grandma still owns that house? I wonder if this has occurred to anyone else since then. The author responded to my comment, saying, I did not make a sound when I opened my eyes. I didn't move or even change my breathing. My grandmother does not own the house anymore, and long after she moved out, she passed on, so I can't ask her about it anymore. Case file number 146, written by Natural Charity 6920, an inside joke to pass closure from beyond. A week and a half ago, one of my best friends died. We had been friends ever since we were 11. The entire year before, he kept making eerie statements saying he was going to die. Every day just seemed to get harder for him. Well, it's been 20 years since we met, and I'm not sure if you remember old Greg. When we were in middle school about 15 years ago, we were the first kids to see it. This crap was freaking hilarious. It became a massive inside joke between us and the whole school. It was a very significant inside joke. Flash forward, we're 28 years old. Everyone was going crazy from the lockdown. My wife dreaded her hair, poorly, and tried to dye it green. The whole entire thing didn't go well, and we all had good humor about it and had a lot of fun. My buddy started making these hilarious old Greg references about her hair. And of course the inside joke was raging between us again the whole of last year. He unfortunately didn't wake up last week. He was a partier who wanted to die young. I was a wreck for a few days. Then we piled in the car and drove to his visitation, where we had to see the body. Seeing your dead best friend has a way of messing with your head. We weren't gone for 15 minutes from visitation on the highway. I was crying, getting a flood of all our memories. I look up from my phone and my contacts are kind of foggy. The license plate in front of us says something, but it's too far in front of us. I have this feeling overcome me though, like I have to read it. I tell my wife to step on it. I have got to see what it says. The license plate said, Old Greg. And I felt him comfort me, or like he was trying to tell me that stupid joke again. At this point, we were riding these people in front of our cars as they started to get mad and swerving. Just reminded me more of him because he was an asshole. It might be a stupid coincidence. I'm not a religious man. I did take a picture of the license plate and blew a lot of people who knew him away. Case notes, file number 146. May your friend rest in peace. You understood who he was, his character. That wouldn't numb the pain of losing him, and yet, there he is, providing you with the closure you desperately needed through a simple medium of an inside joke. I think he'll be okay, and so will you. Case file number 147, written by Cillian Drome. In the closet, a ghost, demanding bravery utmost. When I was a child, maybe 6th or 7th grade, I slept in a room with no curtains. The light from across the street cast the shadow of the tree in our front yard across the walls. When fall came and there were no leaves, the skeleton of that tree made a vein-like pattern on the wall that swayed and wiggled when the wind blew. I always slept with the closet door open. It had a sliding door, and there was enough room inside to walk into it on one side of the hanging coats and shirts. One night, the shadows from the tree were cast right across the closet door. It was dark inside the closet, but I could still make out what I thought was the shape of some coats hanging there. As I stared into the dark at the opening to the closet, I began to feel an eerie sense of something else being in the room. The human-sized shape inside the closet began to slowly move forwards towards the closet door. I thought this must be a trick of the light. The shadows were from the tree, perhaps. The longer I watched, the closer it got to the door. I felt a strange tension building up inside me, a fear that maybe it wasn't the shadows after all. I tried to examine it as best as I could to see if I could tell the difference. It looked like a Native American man, shirtless, animal hide around the waist, and long straight black hair. I even thought I could make out a headband, but it was blurry. It was dark, and you know how things are often unclear in the dark. I remembered hearing once about how Indian boys had to pass a coming-of-age test to move from childhood to manhood, to become a full member of the tribe. This test was simple. The boy would climb to the top of the tree when the wind was blowing and had to hang on it for a time without climbing back down. Now, when the wind blows, it feels like he's going to fall, so he proves his bravery by hanging on. Be like the Indian boy, I told myself. Hang on. Just then, the ghost reached all the way to the threshold of the closet, causing my skin to go full goosebump. As soon as it broke out from inside the closet to the outside, it was suddenly, but somehow smoothly back in the closet again, where it started to move forward all over again. This went on for what seemed like an hour. I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep with this going on. I thought to myself that I must either leave the room or prove to myself that it was just shadows, if I was ever going to get sleep at all. So I got up out of bed, trembling with unsure feet, and began to slowly walk towards the closet. The whole time I kept my eyes on it, and it did not stop its repeating motion. It was as if it was trying to get out of the closet, but it couldn't for some reason. I finally arrived at the open closet door, and the thing was right in front of me and still moving slowly, ever so slowly. A high-pitched tone rose up in my ears and I could hear my heart pounding inside my head. But I took that last step right into the closet, right into the dark, right into the Indian. A wave of goosebumps swept across my skin as thousands of little hairs stood on end. A cool sensation engulfed me and then slowly faded away until everything calmed down and I was left in there alone. The Indian was gone. I went back to bed and slept well that night. I had overcome the fear of that closet and those shadows. I don't know if the Indian was a ghost or not. He never tried to harm me if he was. Perhaps it just needed to be noticed. Perhaps he was stuck in between worlds. Perhaps it was an evil spirit simply trying to scare me. In any case, it was my coming-of-age test. At the top of the shadow of that tree, swaying back and forth in the wind. I was afraid, but I was also brave, and I became a man. A full-fledged part of the tribe. Case notes, file number 147. Wow, so this story had such an intriguing vibe. You're an excellent writer for setting the mood of a tale. Of course, if it was just shadows from the tree, it would be repeatable almost every night. I imagine you never saw this again, so I do believe it was an entity. Or of course, it is possible was a figment of an active imagination. From the way you write this, I think you were in a headspace where you wanted to prove yourself in your own mind as brave. Maybe your mind manifested such a real, disturbing challenge as a way for you to overcome it and be brave. You can't be brave without a source of fear to challenge yourselves against it. Either way, well done. The author responded to my comment, saying, "It's true that I never saw it again. I did take note on other nights that the clothes hanging in the closet could have looked like someone standing there, but they were all pushed over to the other side of the closet. It was one of those with two sliding doors, where only one can be open at a time. On that night and every night, the hanging clothes were always pushed over to the unopened side, so it couldn't have been the clothes. I have heard of optical illusion, where in the dark, an image can appear to be moving, and in doing so, it appears to repeat the same motion over and over. The only problem with that explanation is that I slept with those curtains open much of the time, and the closet door open all the time, and I never saw it before or since. Also, it's interesting that this happened in that room, as something else happened in there one night when my brother used to sleep in there with me. He had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and after he left the room, I heard someone dragging their feet on the carpet while they walked towards my bed from the door of the room. I hadn't heard him come back from the bathroom, but I figured he must have. But the sound was unmistakable. It was someone walking across the carpet without lifting their feet up off the carpet as they walked. When I got over to my bed, it felt like someone was hovering over my bed right above the blanket, which I had pulled over my head. I got scared and again was completely still and quiet. It had a malevolent vibe to it, whatever it was. A few minutes later, my brother opened the door and came back in. The sound of him opening the door was very noticeable, and it was very obvious that he had come back in. I sat up and looked around, and no one else was in the room besides us. I asked him if he had come in and then left again, and he said no. We did not have a dog, which might have made such a sound, I guess. We had cats, but they were not in our room and wouldn't have made the sound anyway. It seems like there was something there trying to scare me for some reason. There was another occurrence at that house that maybe I'll share later on, because it was in another room. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, and leave any thoughts you might have down below. I always like knowing what you guys think too.